You're listening to Innovators Can Laugh, the fun startup podcast. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Eric Melcher. And on Innovators Can Laugh, we investigate a new topic each week and interview some of the most innovative minds in the startup scene here in Europe. My goal is to turn my guests' wisdom to actionable advice that you can use to grow your business. No matter your industry, I'm here to uncover value from my guests by doing the proper research and asking the right questions. And at the end of each interview, we have a little fun where my guests reveal fun and interesting facts about themselves, the stuff you won't see on their LinkedIn profile. If you're new to the show, I'm a marketing geek and head of partnerships at tech startup Bonjoro. I'm also an American expat living in Romania. If you're curious about other European startups and what they're doing to scale, gain customers, or things that they do to differentiate themselves, hit the subscribe button because you'll love it here at Innovators Can Laugh podcast. Also, you can play the Innovators Can Laugh game and have an opportunity to compete against other startup folks on Twitter. Just look for the hashtag Innovators Can Laugh. Hey, ICL fans. Today we're chatting with the Bootstrap founder, Arvid Kahl. Arvid is a jack of all trades. He is a speaker, a writer, a course creator, a startup founder, and the creator of Feedback Panda, which he was able to get to $55,000 in MRR in just under 2 years. Shortly after that, he sold it for what he calls life-changing money. All right. If you want to get ideas on how to bootstrap a startup, this episode is for you. Let's dive in. Arvid, you're a jack of all trades, a speaker, a writer, a software engineer, course creator, but you really started your career as a software developer. From 2011 to 2018, you had a full-time gigs. You were also an entrepreneur. Can you paint us a picture of what your life was like during that time?
Very chaotic, I gotta say. Here's one thing about my life. It's full of random choices that make a lot of sense in retrospect, but not much sense at the moment where I'm making them. So I always wanted to be in computers. That thing has always been true, but the way I approached it initially was to go to university and study computer science. And I quickly found, that's really not for me. It's way too theoretical. It's way too abstract, and I would have built stuff. And then I kind of got a job at a web agency, and that got me into making some money. And also World of Warcraft happened. So I spent a lot of time not going to university, but playing a lot of games. So that kind of stopped my academic track record right there. And then, going to university in Germany, you only get subsidized for a couple years. And if you don't finish what you started, then you can't really continue doing it anymore. So I switched majors pretty much and started studying political science and philosophy, because I thought, hey, let's take the complete opposite of computer science and take something with people, like something where you learn and understand how people work, how societies work, how history works and all that stuff. And gotta say, now that I'm a writer, understanding complex systems and boiling them down into easy to understand models and stuff, that really helps. But yeah, I did that for a couple of years, and World of Warcraft was still happening. So I didn't go to university that much either around that time. And then I got a job in San Francisco, which was really nice. A company that had just been VC funded there invited me over because I had been using the same tech stack that they had been using back in 2013. That must have been around the time. And they said, hey, cool, we saw your GitHub and we really like it. Do you want to work for us? And I kind of worked for them all of a sudden, like out of not even having a degree in anything, but having lots of cool projects out there. That got me the foot in the door, really, and worked there for a bit, got some burnout. So I kind of stopped working. That was my first clash with mental health and the potential of overworking yourself for really cool.
How many hours were you working?
Well, it was like 5 days a week, like 10-ish hours a day. And then the weekend was also mostly talking about work. Like we kind of, the times I was there, we lived above the place where we worked. It was like a garage, essentially. It was this whole, starting your little startup in the garage. And that was what it was. It was really cool and was super exciting back in the day because we built like a cloud IDE where people could code in the cloud, which is now getting more and more normal, but it was not back then. So that was really cool. And but also a lot of work and a lot of not much else than work. So, that's when I figured, okay, life can't just be working for somebody else. Then back in Germany, after I quit that job because it was too much for me, I freelanced a lot and I consulted because I had some knowledge at that point. Then I found a job through a friend. I co-founded a couple businesses that failed horribly. It was a lot of fun there, and got a job. Did that job for a couple of years, and then I was already dating Danielle, my girlfriend with whom I live in Canada now, and she was an online teacher. She had a problem. I built a solution, and all of a sudden we had a business. And then we ran that business, software as a service business. We grew it to must have been $55,000 monthly recurring revenue, $600K a year, and then we sold it to a private equity company within 2 years of founding it for what I am allowed to say is a life-changing amount of money. And ever since then, life has been changed, and I've been writing a lot. I've been sharing a lot. I've been trying to empower people because now I am the person that gets to do that. Now I get to help. Now I get to teach. Where before I was the student, I was the one being helped, and it's like paying taxes. You help those who need help, and I love it because it makes me get out of bed. It makes me turn on my camera, turn on my microphone, and just help, like present people with something that they can use. That's what I do every day. I wrote a couple books, I made a course, and now I'm just really talking into this microphone and looking into my camera all the time. It's fun. It's incredible.
That is so much in just what you just shared there. So if we can go back for a second, you said you had 2 failures, spectacular failures. I think that's what you said. Yeah. Why were they spectacular? I mean, if you can go back and do things differently, what did you learn from those 2 failures? What were they? What type of businesses were they? And what happened?
Oh, well, the first one was a couple friends and I, we got together and founded a company, and we tried to build a local food marketplace in Berlin, because Berlin in Germany is where we lived at that point. And Berlin is a city full of hipsters, full of people who like really good food, but it's a big city. And, they don't grow food in the city, but they do outside of the city. And we tried to connect those farmers just around the city to be able to sell their product to like weekend markets, little local farmers markets and stuff in the city. We wanted to build a marketplace, a digital marketplace for people to coordinate that. And we set out to build it. We rented an office, we got computers, we hired a couple people, and then we built something for like 6 months without asking anybody what they needed. It was horrible. Like, we did no validation. We had this grandiose idea of totally understanding both sides of the market, which is already fairly ambitious to even do with validation, right? And we didn't talk to farmers enough to figure out what they needed. We didn't talk to the foodies enough to figure out how they wanted to purchase these things. We just thought we knew exactly what should be done. And obviously we launched the thing and crickets, nothing happened, because the marketplace on the consumer side, we didn't have any kind of digital payment. So people would have to pay in cash on delivery, which they didn't want, because I was unable to integrate PayPal for some reason. And on the producer side, we had built this complicated web application for people who didn't even have a computer. We did not validate it. It was horrible. So the project has since switched over to something else. I left the company, and I'm out of there. They have now built a little food, these kind of boxes, these where you have like fresh vegetables, veggie boxes, and so that are delivered on a monthly basis. That's happening there with that business. Okay. But our grandiose initial idea flopped, and we spent a lot of our money, a lot of our time. I spent 2 days a week working on that while I was consulting. We even had EU funding at some point to be able to hire a couple people to help us out and do stuff, deliver things. It was nice. Yeah. It was fun, but it was stupid. Tell you that, because we thought we knew. And that's one of the biggest learnings from that thing, is like, you need to validate every single assumption. Like, even if you think you got it right and you're the first customer of your business, doesn't matter. Probably you're the only customer of your business. And then you're running into this this issue that you extrapolate your thoughts without ever checking in with reality. That is the very first biggest bootstrapped / self-funded business that I co-founded, and that just imploded. It's a great learning, but an expensive one too.
Yeah. Are you still friends with the ex-co-founder there?
Oh,
the
yeah. One of them is my best friend, and the other one I'm still on really good terms with, because there wasn't any any negativity towards any kind of internal dynamic. Like, we all thought this was the way it worked, and we were all equally disappointed. It's not that one guy was driving it and the other were just like clinging on. Now, that was a collective failure that we all owned up, and we each grew out of it in a good way. My friend is a designer. He used it as a portfolio for his next project, for example. And the other guy who was the CEO and the idea person, well, he keeps running it, and he has the connections that he made throughout all these things with all local farmers and local food distribution systems and restaurants. He has this still, and he uses it for stuff he's doing now. And I have a nice story to tell. So we all win, right?
Yeah. You can't be a true entrepreneur unless you have at least one failure to talk about, right? So what was the second startup that didn't go so well?
Similarly, with other friends, I co-founded a business that was, the idea was, there's a lot of embedded photographers out there who are in war zones, who are like taking pictures of current events. And they're usually in areas where the internet connectivity, particularly back in 2015, was not too good. So what a photographer like this is doing, they take pictures and then they have a satellite phone or something like it that connects to the internet, through which they upload these files into the, and here comes the decades-old technology, unsecured FTP servers of picture agencies, like news agencies, essentially. They have just open floodgates where every photographer that works for them or wants to work for them just uploads their photos. Unasked. They've just really, you upload them, you label them, you put in there what your name is and how much it costs for them to use them on an FTP server, like literally just throwing files into an unsecured system. And they do that, these photographers, with all the agencies that they want to send the pictures to, right? So you send one to Reuters, you send one to like the APA or whatever. It's different than New York Times and whatnot. What that means for somebody who's sitting somewhere in Iraq or Afghanistan at the time, and they have a really, really limited bandwidth on their phone, that takes hours. And that takes hours that they need to sit in front of a computer instead of being able to document what they're doing. So what we built was you send us your files once, and we multiplex, we distribute them to all these agencies. And each agency has their naming conventions. So you figure this out and you upload. It was a cool idea that I still believe it is, but I was not a photographer. My other friend who also built the thing with me was not a photographer. The guy who had the idea was a photographer or an ex-photographer, but he was also mostly working for a design agency at the time. So our time budget was really small. And again, nobody talked to other photographers. We built the thing. We even had paying customers. And then for some reason, we, our CEO, and we all kind of thought, hey, this is not enough money. Without ever thinking of doing marketing. Like, we did zero marketing. Like, one of the most thoughtless ways of building a business. Hey, we built this. Where are they? I thought it was, if you build it, they will come. Right. And that's the approach that we took there, which taught me, once that was we closed that down because it wasn't worth our time, because we didn't have any money, not knowing that, marketing would have helped. What I learned is, if you don't tell people, not just that you're there, but also how you can help them and show them and guide them towards you, if you don't attract people, for whatever means, your business has no value. It might be the most exciting piece of technology that you built, and it might be a revelation for the people that finally end up using it. Because in our case, like, if you sent your data to 50 agencies at the same time, now all of a sudden, instead of using 4 hours, oh God, should have taken a better example for math. It's over in 5 minutes, right? And that is 3 hours and 55 minutes that you get to make more money by taking more pictures. That makes immediate sense. And Feedback Panda, the business that I built later with Danielle for online teaching, was exactly the same. We took a 2-hour task, reduced it to 5 minutes, sometimes 2, depending on how quick people can click. And that was the value of the business. And we communicated that clearly. We communicated it inside the community that Danielle was a part of. And the people in the community communicated it to each other because it was easy to communicate, and we had a business. So marketing, however, right? Paid ads, not paid ads, word of mouth, whatever it is, you just have to do it. You have to actually do it to make a sale. That's what I learned from that one.
Okay, Feedback Panda, this application, I think right now it's an application that people globally can use, but at that time, was it specifically in Germany? Or was it also globally at that time?
So one of the benefits of having an English-speaking girlfriend as a German is that you immediately get exposed to a global scope, I guess, of problems in businesses and all that stuff, right? Because she was teaching English as a second language to a Chinese or through a Chinese company that connected her with Chinese children who wanted to learn English. Or rather, I guess the company connected her with the parents of those kids who paid the company to then pay Danielle to teach their kids. Like it's an online school, essentially. So she needed a job to do from home. Danielle is a trained opera singer, but she had a leg injury at the time, 2016-ish, around the time. So she needed to find something to do from home. And it's kind of hard to sing opera from home, right? It's not an opera, it's a home. So you can't really have people over and then sing super loudly in a, apartment neighborhood. So she needed another job. She found that job teaching English online and she really enjoyed it. It was awesome. Like you connected with all these cute Chinese kids who don't speak a word of English. So you have to be super animated and you have to sing and dance. It's really enjoyable to teach. But what was not as enjoyable was that she needed to file student feedbacks for the parents to read because we are talking about China. Chinese parents are very, very focused on making their kids be as good as they can be. Like the whole competition with the Gaokao, their big tests that they have for university entrance and stuff. They want their kids to learn as much as possible. So they are very, very closely observant of anything that happens. But you need to write a lot of text if you want to tell a parent in detail what the kid learned, right? And that time that she spent on that, for every half-hour lesson, she needed to write like 10 minutes worth of text. That was unpaid.
Yeah.
She wouldn't be paid for the time. But if she didn't file the student feedback, they would not even pay her for teaching. That's how important that was. So she had her own little system. She had Word documents and like an Excel sheet somewhere and some handwritten notes. And she would just pull that all together, type it out as quickly, copy, paste, whatever, take like a couple minutes per student and do that all, take her 2 hours. Sometimes an hour if she was fast. Obviously, for a software engineer, anything that is text substitution and using fragments here and just changing the name, that just yells for a software solution. So she told me what she needed. I built a prototype for her. And it was nothing about German at all. Like I've been in the software industry for a while. So I am German, but the language that I speak most of my day, at least my professional day, is English, as you might be able to tell, right? That you have to expose yourself to the language and you have to learn it and you have to think in it if you are a coder, because most programming languages are in itself variations of the English language. So that was very easy. I built a system for her, English speaking, obviously, and I had enough knowledge and experience in building software as a service businesses that are platforms that from the start, I built it so it was multi-tenant. So many people could log into it and have their own little database and can, have their own little selection of feedback templates if they wanted to. And she used it for a while. We ironed out the kinks. And then I just opened up the floodgates. She posted about it in the Facebook group that she was part of with all these other thousands of teachers. And since that day, we didn't have to do any paid marketing because the product was so clear and so helpful that we had almost exclusively word of mouth marketing, just bringing in 20, 30 new teachers every day, out of which 40% would convert into paying users. So we started in 2017 with zero money, zero users. Within a couple months, we had hundreds of users. And in 2019, when we sold, middle of the year, just under 2 years after we started, we had 5,500 paying users using our product.
Wow.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, did you have a free plan and a paid plan?
Or did you
just give like a 7-day free trial? Okay.
Well, I read a book, Hooked, by Nir Eyal, and in this he writes about the hook cycle, which is very interesting just for anybody building products that they want people to habitualize, to use in a habitual way. And he talks about the fact that if you want a habit to start existing, it needs some time, and 7 days may not be enough. So we gave people a 30-day trial, mostly out of this kind of calculation that these people get paid on a monthly basis. So I want them to be able to see, they get paid before they use it and they get paid while they use it and where the difference is. We wanted people to habitualize not only using the product, but also see the immediate impact of the product. And the more people put their feedback templates into Feedback Panda, the easier or quicker they would be able to use them. So by giving people this long time to use it for free, they would notice, oh, wow, this is actually way faster now that I've been here investing my templates into this, because they still had to type them in, but only once instead of every time, right? So they notice, oh, this is extremely fast now that I've been using it for a couple of weeks. I guess I can pay $10 a month, because we argued, and that was our price model, because we knew they didn't have much money. For many of these teachers, that was a second or third job that they did, in addition to actually teaching at a school. It was bizarre. It was a whole situation. So yeah, we gave a free trial, and then initially we had two plans, a $5 a month and a $10 a month. We quickly scrapped the $5 a month because it just had a limit to the amount of students and amount of feedback, but we didn't really need that. It was $10 a month for every single person using it. At a later point, we increased that to $15 a month, like a year into it, gave people the opportunity to lock in their $10 a month price if they bought a yearly subscription. So that was a nice influx of cash at that point. At the same point, we introduced a referral system, which we wouldn't really have needed because people referred us anyway, but we continued to incentivize them even more, you get a free couple months or free month if you invite a couple people and so on. So it was really nice.
Oh, wow. Were you getting a lot of requests for any changes or any customer feedback during this time too?
Oh, we got a lot of customer feedback. If teachers are one thing, then they are good communicators and they know what they want and they will tell you what they want, because that is how teaching works, right? You tell somebody what you want them to do and then you kind of get them to do it. So Daniela and I, we both were equal partners in customer service. Obviously, because we were the only people in the business. We never hired until we sold. We were only the co-founders for the business that were really employees of the business. And after a while, most of the things that came through, the conversations were technical in nature. People had data problems or this didn't work the way they wanted. So I had most of these things on my plate. And Danielle took the ones that were for her, like product design and stuff. But yes, we got a lot of feedback and it was extremely helpful. In two ways. First off, it's really nice to get people to talk about their problems while they use the product. And we had a product that was used multiple times a day, because every half an hour, essentially, every single one of these teachers would want to create a feedback quickly so they wouldn't have to do it after, right? So they would do it and would use it. And if there was a problem, they would tell me right then. And then half an hour later, they might have the same problem. The second part is, as the software engineer of the business, I had the amazing opportunity to hear about a problem at one point, and then 30 minutes later, I would already have developed and deployed the fix for it. And that blew people's minds. This immediate impact of a complaint or of a wish or of a bug report or whatever it was on the product is something that most of these people who were severely underserved to begin with, because who makes stuff for teachers, right? There's no money in teaching or education, so nobody builds for teachers. They loved that. And that was the fuel that we didn't even need to pour in, because people did it themselves into the marketing efforts that they then did for us. They went to Facebook and said, you won't believe what happened. I told them this didn't work. And then I refreshed 10 minutes later and it worked. And they did that for me. This is a great product. You have to try it out. Here's my referral link. It was awesome. That was the best kind of marketing could have wished for, because it was honest. And it was, it was nice.
All right. So I have a theory here, because earlier in the conversation, you were saying that one of your first jobs was at a startup in San Francisco. It was pretty cool. It was the startup. You're with these tech guys. You're above a garage, and you're getting this new experience. It's in a new city, but then your mental health, you got burned out, right? Here, you are the sole engineer, the primary person that's developing a product. You've got no other employees. You haven't really invested a lot of money, or maybe you did, but not like your other startups that, like the grocery one where you guys had an office and you hired employees, right? But the way you're telling the story, you're smiling, you're enthusiastic, and you're probably putting in the same amount of hours, maybe even more, because you're the only person as you're building, Feedback Panda. So my theory is that there is no such thing as burnout when you've got a product that you like and other people like. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I would both agree and disagree, because at the end of that journey, just shortly before we sold, I was getting closer to that point again. And that was not because the product itself was bad or I did it for somebody else and didn't retain ownership, because I think that's one of the reasons why burnout is hitting people in employee situations quite a lot, is because they create, they produce, they sacrifice, and then that is shareholder value, but they are not shareholders. Like that, there's a disparity between the value you create and the value you retain. If you have a startup, if you have your own business, then everything you do to grow the startup also grows your wealth. And that is one of the reasons that we sold. Because, of course, there's always many, many reasons. There are many, many reasons out there for why you end such a journey. Because why, you say, like, never change your winning team kind of thing, right? You have things that, if it goes well, why not continue? Well, all our wealth was locked in that business. Like, we had built something amazing, like a thing worth millions at that point. And both Danielle and I didn't have any savings, really, at that point, at least. We were just like living paycheck to paycheck, like most people, So by having a business like this, we noticed this is super valuable. We better not mess this up, because if this just implodes because, there's some technological problem, or we really burn out and we can't handle it anymore, then we have built all of this for nothing. There's no value for us in it anymore. So we decided, let's look into selling. And that was after people have approached us to wanted to acquire a business. So we built it as a sellable business from the start, because I read the book Built to Sell. And if you read John Warner's book, you will learn that if you build a sellable business, it's going to be a great business. You don't have to sell it. But if it's great, then it's sellable. And if it's sellable, then it's great. So you might just as well build it so you can remove yourself easily. And then, you have a business that you can quickly sell if you want to, or improve and increase, grow, whatever, if you choose that path. But for me, I really wanted out at this point, because solo tech founder, any technical problem that would come our way, either on the server side, like some kind of infrastructure problem, or the internet was messed up again and AWS had a problem because, somebody pulled a cable in the ocean and now I had to deal with this. Yeah. Or one of our integrations would fail. So all of our customers who used the integration, and there were thousands of people, would all notice that it didn't work at the same time and then just swamp our customer service chat. And that was just a lot of pressure on me as a person that was both there to reply to customer service messages and to fix the problem that I told these people somebody would fix. So, it was like wearing two hats at the same time, and it was impossible to deal with. And then the fact that no matter when the problem happened, I needed to get up and do it. That afternoon, morning, midnight, doesn't matter. I was the only person who could solve it. Yeah. So I hadn't hired, which is probably one of my stupidest decisions in that business, because I thought we will only hire when there's 40 hours of work for another person. Yeah, I guess I have no idea where that came from. But
that makes sense, though. I mean, that makes sense if you're a first-time founder and you're growing and you think, okay, but looking back in hindsight, when would you, or when should have you hired somebody? At what point?
Well, first off, I should have hired somebody to replace me as the first person to talk to customers. Like, get a customer service agent as a barrier against the avalanche, the onslaught of messages at any given point. Because it is a whole different experience if you see 100 messages come in and you get the notifications on your phone, or if somebody sends you one message saying, hey, we got 50 messages over the last 5 minutes. Something is wrong with this and that particular thing. So right. The first line of defense, that would have the first hire. The second hire would have been a software engineer of a skill level that could solve technical problems that could come up in a business like this on retainer. So, be there for 10 hours a month. Here's your monthly pay. And if we need you, we need you. And if we don't need you, that's wonderful. Should have done that just as a security option if I was not available. We had a couple of transatlantic flights because, again, Germany, Canada, right? Danielle was from Canada. We often visited her family here. And we went back and forth from Germany to Canada. So I was out for 8 hours plus, right? And if anything happened during this time, nobody could fix it. With somebody on retainer, somebody would have been able to fix it. And my mind would have been at ease, and I wouldn't have tried to check the uptime of my business the minute the plane would land. All these people who get up and stand in the aisle trying to get out of the plane the moment it touches on the ground. I was the person on their phone scrolling through my server logs the first time I would get connectivity. Yeah, that was my priority at that point. Not even getting out, just understanding if everything's fine with my business. And that puts pressure on you. That creates this kind of, you don't sleep deeply anymore because you want to be able to wake up at any moment if you need to. And you don't you don't have the kind of focus on building stable pieces of software if you also need to be on the lookout for customers reaching out to you. There's just a lot of pressure on me doing multiple things at the same time that are hard to do simultaneously.
Yeah.
And my inability to understand that hiring a part-time employee is a possibility in today's world, that really caused me, against Danielle's better knowledge. Like, she tried to convince me, you should hire. And I was like, nah, I can handle it. Don't you see? I handle it. So that was my ego, my startup founder ego. I could do everything. It was horrible because I think I developed several physical symptoms of stress that I had to deal with for years and still am dealing with. Like, it's sometimes I get PTSD from the sound of the intercom chat bubble that you see on websites in the bottom right corner. Like, when that opens up, honestly, like that opens up, I go, that's the moment. Like, because I think, oh God, but some part of our system just crashed, even though I don't own the business, and I haven't owned the business for now, what is 3 years, I still feel like I need to check our servers now, because that is the self-conditioning that I did. And it was horrible. So that is, for me at least, the main reason why we sold. Obviously, a life-changing amount of money changes your life, hopefully for the better, did for us. And it allowed me to find something that is way less stressful and way more enjoyable. And that is teaching founders what I learned. It is so much easier to write a book than it is to run a software business. Info products sell themselves. All I need to do is share with people what I know on Twitter. And that's what I spend most of my time right now, is being on Twitter, helping people so that they eventually maybe find my work and maybe purchase it. That's all I need to do. If they talk about it to their friends, that's all I want. I don't need anything at this point, but I want to help. So that's definitely the more enjoyable and less burnout prone activity, but it needed me to get into the space to understand how damaging that was. And it also needed the opportunity of somebody reaching out to us, to acquire us, for me to understand that's my way out. Yeah. Because I thought, let's just keep it, because it was growing. That was great.
Yeah. We're going to get into some of the books that you've read into the courses that you teach in just a second. When you exited, though, I'm very curious here, because this is the first time that you sold a company for a considerable amount of money. I'm just wondering, did you negotiate? Because you're teaching other startup founders everything from the beginning to the end, how to create a business, how to manage it, and how to get it prepared for acquisition. So if you go back right now, do you feel like, hey, I think I did okay? Or did you feel like, wait a minute, I probably could have gotten more money or something else?
That's such a nice question, because in retrospect, you always wonder, what if we had done double that? Or what if we had played this game where you act like there's more interest and stuff? But no, we had a fairly straightforward exchange with our acquirer. It was kind of easy, the whole process, because everybody we talked to, both the people that they told us to talk to and the people that we found we wanted to talk to, who had dealings with Schusswurf Capital, that's the PE company we sold to. Everybody was a friendly person that was community minded, that was active in the community, like Tyler Tringus or Moritz Dausinger. Both of them are founders that have a huge following on Twitter. They've been around for decades at this point. These were people that you already had some trust within the community. So we talked to them and they said, everything was fine. Like there was no backstabbing or anything like it. It was just a fair and very transparent business transaction. We did negotiate. And by we, I mean Danielle, because I'm a people pleaser. I have problems with negotiations because I cannot act like I'm tough, because I'm not. I'm just a friend. I'm trying to be friendly at least, and a kind person. So I gave Danielle, she's coming from a family of farmers, of business people. Like, she understands negotiation and she has no problem doing it. She's really good at it. She's good at a lot of things, but this was in particularly her doing. So no, I did not negotiate, but yes, we certainly did negotiate.
Okay.
And it gave us, we arrived at a price that we all found to be very fair and the outcome does allow us to live the life that we always wanted to live. I live in my basement and I couldn't be happier. That's kind of where I am right now. And Well, that's really what it is, because we got to a financial situation where somebody once described that as a post economic state of mind.
Yeah.
That's the phrase. So you have this kind of, you don't need to think about the rent payment for next month or the mortgage or whatever. You don't need to think about how am I going to make this. You will make it. So the choices that you make are not about today, this week, or this month. They are about what am I going to invest in for the next decade. Yeah. That's the thinking that we're now allowed to do from this position. And that makes a whole lot of difference.
Yeah.
And it's also making me much calmer. I may be excited right now because I just love sharing the story, but in general, I'm a very calm person. And that level of anxiety that I had back with Feedback Panda, running it, keeping it alone, keeping it running, really, that is now dispersed because we diversified in many, many different ways. And that is kind of what I think what most founders actually want. They don't want the big exit. The big exit is a vehicle to get to this point of inner peace, really, stability, right? Financial stability and security. And that comes in many different shapes, not just a lot of money.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's certainly, negotiation was a big part of it. And we didn't need to do any tricks because we had fair people on the other end.
Okay.
And that was because we vetted them and they had been doing like 30 different other transactions before us. And we had a lot of people to talk to.
Okay. That's good to hear. I bet a common question that you get is like, hey, what's the first thing you purchased? But instead, what I'm guessing is that it wasn't even a purchase. It was the fact that you didn't have to check your phone every hour to see if you had customer inquiries coming in or something that needed to be fixed that gave you happiness.
That is exactly what it is. I purchased my time back. Like I literally purchased a baseline shift in my anxiety with this. Took a couple days for it to sink in, but we had a little, this moment when you see it on your account, you open your champagne bottle and you do a little this, and then you notice, nothing is different, because you're still the same person. You still have to make all these choices in your life, but I could, and then we transitioned the business over fairly quickly because that was really not too complicated. Having built a sellable business allowed us to essentially hand over the whole business within an hour. We didn't need to do more because we did this hire and train people, but
let's talk about that. So you're saying it was very easy to hand this over. What books or references do you tell other people like, hey, before you actually start, building or whatever, if you're trying to build something that you want to sellable, here's something that you should read or here's something that you need to do. Can you touch up on that?
Absolutely. So I guess I already mentioned one of them, Built to Sell. Built to Sell by John Morello is a seminal book for me because it made this thing click in my mind that if I wanted to build, like I said, a great business, I needed to build a sellable business. And if I wanted to eventually sell a business, I needed to build a great business because only great businesses get acquired. So it's essentially the same. And what makes a sellable business sellable is that it's highly automated. It's well documented. It's essentially a franchise. You hand over the keys to McDonald's, right? If you want to build a McDonald's or if you want to franchise a McDonald's, you go to the McDonald's headquarters. You don't literally go there, but you become a franchisee. They give you the big handbook, the McDonald's tutorial, and then they also rent you the space and they tell you exactly where to put what and how to hire people. Everything is codified. And if you can do that at a much smaller scale with your software as a service business, you have this manual, the business manual, the operating manual, which we had, and we had all the SOPs, our standard operating procedures, like what happens if the server is down or how do you deploy a new version, all step by step with where's the password for this account, how do you log into this? I had written it all down because I'm German and we love documenting. So that was how that happened, right? And we had a really thorough operation manual. We had all these SOPs codified. We had highly automated everything about the business. We had made sure that all our accounts were not personal, but business, right? Our emails were business emails. Our logins were business logins. There was no personal money involved. It was all on a bank account for the company. So all of this was clearly separated. And that's what Built to Sell taught me. Built to Sell is really clear about this. John Morello has since written another book, like 2 years ago, which is called The Art of Selling a Business. And that is the second book. The that I would recommend. Let me check. I might mispronounce it. It could also be like the art of selling your business. So that's what it is. So I have all these books right here because I regularly reference them. And that explains to you how the sale happens. And it also goes into detail, what do you need for a business to be sellable beyond what Built to Sell already had. Because John Morlow has a podcast and he has now over 200 episodes or so of people who sold their businesses talking about their acquisition. Super helpful. That's what I did. Before we sold, when we were in this process of negotiating, I listened to 150 or so episodes of that podcast back to back. They're at regular speed. It took me 2 weeks to listen to the whole thing. But then I had like hundreds of opinions about how an acquisition went, what their red flags were, what the problems were, and how they dealt with it. So I went into this negotiation knowing exactly what I wanted and what to look out for. And John has kindly turned this into a book that you can get for like $25 or something. So that's the second book that I would recommend. Finally, third one is The E-Myth, or I guess the E-Myth Revisited is the current name, by Michael E. Gerber, which is the E stands for entrepreneurial. And that book talks about the myth that you only need to be a good technician to build a business, right? If I know how to build a good program, if I know how to code, I can build a software business. Or I know how to, make a leather wallet, I can build a wallet business. No, you cannot. You still need an entrepreneurial approach. You need a managerial approach. You need to have a structured business. You have to structure your plans. You have to have a vision and you need to manage it. And that's what that book tells you in really clear detail, very actionably. One of the exercises we did from that book, Danielle and I, before we launched the business, but while we already were building it, because we understood this is going to be something, because there was some resonance from the community, they have an exercise in the book. Gerber has an exercise where you take a big whiteboard and you put your name, the owner of the business, on top, you draw a line under it, and then you write CEO, and then you write CTO, CFO, CEO, all these C levels, VP of product, VP of, finance, VP of the design, VP of customer service, and then you have the little roles beneath that. You built essentially a corporate hierarchy of a business that does not exist, but of the business that you think that your business could turn into in 5 or 10 years. So you have all the roles: software engineer, backend engineer, front-end engineer, database administrator, front-end designer, all these little things. And you have that for all these things. You have it for finance, where you have accounts payable, accounts receivable, and your SEO specialist, your Facebook marketing lead, put them all there. We had 50 different positions in our corporate hierarchy that we had on the whiteboard. And then you're only the couple co-founders at that point, right? You don't even have a business yet. Then you put your names under each of these positions. Danielle was the CEO, I was the CTO, and CFO, she was the CMO and COO, all that stuff. And then one level down, I was the software engineer, I was the backend engineer, I was the front-end engineer. Of course, I was all these things because I was the only technical person, but she was the product designer, she was the customer success manager, and so on. We were 50-50 split among these positions, and we knew exactly where we were. We knew exactly who had authority over which field and who was responsible for making choices. And we had a super easy time hiring for those positions because we knew exactly what kind of people we would need. What is the most high impact thing we don't like to do right now, but somebody else would love to do? Well, I guess writing blog posts for our blog is something we could pay somebody to do like once a week or so. So we had like a contractor somewhere writing blog posts for us because we had blog post writer on our chart. It was extremely helpful. And those are the kind of exercises you find in this book, which is why I highly recommend it. And there's like dozens more. Like I have a gigantic list of books that I would recommend every founder to read. But if you follow that list, you won't start your business for a couple months.
Okay.
So keep it up.
Well, let's talk about your book. You've got a couple. One is Zero to Sold. And for somebody who is interested in being a solopreneur, what can they expect from reading this book? What are they going to get out of it?
So the Zero to Sold has an interesting origin story because initially I did not realize that I was writing a book. When we sold the business, we immediately took a vacation because we hadn't been on a vacation for a while. And it was one of these things that might be the thing that we bought. That's it wasn't a Lamborghini. It wasn't a big old whatever. It was a trip to South Africa to look at lions. It's essentially what we did because we had just been watching The Lion King and we really wanted to see it. So, that worked. And when we came back from that vacation, I felt in my soul that my purpose that I had with the business prior, which was like helping teachers be better at their job and be able to spend more time with their families, that purpose was gone because we had just sold it, right? Somebody else was doing this. I couldn't do it anymore. So I needed to find something to fill that void that was surrounding me, the void of purpose, void of any kind of meaningful work that I was supposed to do, because there was nothing I needed to do. And I thought, let me share what I know. And I said this earlier, I turned this kind of thing around, but I have been standing on shoulders of giants for the longest time. Now let me enable other people to stand on my much lower, but still kind of elevated shoulders. That was what I was thinking. Let me be the teacher. So I thought, how can I do this? Let me start a blog, because all the knowledge that I got mostly from blogs. So I thought, let's start the Bootstrapped Founder. That's what my blog is called. And I wrote a couple blog posts and I started posting them every week. And I started on Twitter at the same time. I had a couple hundred followers from 10 years of not doing much on Twitter. And I started using those, putting my content on Twitter and getting people excited about it, being part of the community and enriching people's lives with the knowledge that I could already bring on Twitter. Every week I posted something. And then because I'm a very lazy person, I needed some kind of accountability regimen. So I started a newsletter. And the moment I had my first subscriber, I was like, okay, I better start writing something every week because they expect it. And then all of this is the Bootstrapped Founder, the content that I write every week is now a podcast episode, a newsletter episode, and a blog post at the same time, because I reuse my content to make it most people able to consume it in whatever way they like. And those blog posts added up. At some point, I noticed it was maybe 12, 14 weeks in. Okay, these things could be put in order. They would be a good guide to bootstrapping. And I put a free guide called Zero to Sold on my website, still there, which was just links to the blog posts, really. And before every link, I just wrote one paragraph of what people would find in the article. And then I thought, there's a couple other topics that I would like to write about. And I wrote a little paragraph about the future article I was going to write, but hadn't written yet. And I put them in there. And that turned out to be a 20-some thousand word compendium, really just little fragments and links to things that I had written. And then Andrew Gazdecki, the great Andrew Gazdecki, reached out to me on Twitter. Like he is the founder of MicroAcquire, which is a big player in the acquisition marketplace right now. I still have this tweet. I should frame it, really. And he said, I would pre-order this book. And I'm like, a book, eh? Like, I never thought about the fact that this could actually be an info product. I thought this was my blog in a slightly different shape.
Yeah.
So like somebody else said, I would pay you $10 for a printout of this right now.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't need that money, but I would like it.
Yeah.
So how can we do this, right? And I started writing the rest of the articles. I started consolidating it into a book. I gave that book to an editor. They looked at me and cut out 100 pages because it was 600 pages long. And then throughout a very interesting experimental process with several editors, proofreaders, and stuff, it turned out to be a book, 500 pages. And it's everything I know about bootstrapping, really, about anything that I learned in my many years of building my own businesses, from coming up with ideas, understanding your prospective audience, understanding their problems, building a solution, building a product, or envisioning a solution and turning that into a product, to customer service, how to automate this, how to hire, because we learned how to hire way too late, but at least we did. What mental health problems are happening along the way, how exits work, what red flags are, what green flags are, if you can also keep your business growing, all these little things that I had an opinion on and knowledge of, I put into individual chapters and consolidated into a book. And that's where Zero to Sold came from. So I didn't even intend to write a book, but it just happened because I had so many topics that I wanted to write about that once I put them all into like an actual outline, it turned out to be a table of contents. It's a bizarre story, but it's one of the luckiest moments. I think the luckiest moment of my life is meeting Danielle, obviously, because without her, where would I be? But the second luckiest moment is probably that the revelation that I had something that could be my calling card for the future.
Yeah.
I'm still selling dozen or so of that book every single day in its shapes, many shapes, as an ebook, as a print book, as an audiobook, whatever. Every single day, people buy this and read this and then tell me that it helps them. And that is the most gratifying thing I've ever done.
Awesome.
Obviously, there's a second book as well, but that was the big start.
Yeah.
And it changed my life.
Yeah, awesome. Now, also, a couple of months ago, you launched a course, Find Your Following. It's a 4-hour Twitter audience building course. You built a following of more than 50,000 followers on Twitter in 2 years' time. No growth hacks, no flashy bullshit. What was your approach? I mean, what was your main strategy? Because you said that you were on Twitter for 10 years, didn't really do nothing. You only had like 100 or so followers. And then you just started, I don't know, just being more active. But then when did you realize like, hey, wait a minute, there's a community here, there's engagement. And then when did that shift your idea of, okay, let me be more focused on here?
So it is, again, one of these stories about standing on the shoulders of giants. Because if you analyze what people who are successful on Twitter do, you will quickly find out that you can easily do this as well. It's like learning by observing the field that you're in. So one of the people that I have an enormous amount of respect for is Daniel Vassallo, who also has a Twitter course out there, because he, again, built a large audience by just being an active community member on Twitter. And one of the things that I really, really liked that he was always doing was just engaging with people, no matter how many followers they had. Like, to me, that was one of those moments where, okay, so you don't have to be a snob, right? So you don't have to act like you're better than these people just because they have 20 followers and you have a couple hundred. No, you can treat them like, human beings and have an engaged conversation with them and join them in the ongoing conversations that they're already having. You don't have to force feed them new stuff. You can be helpful right there and then. And I codified that into my own approach, which is engagement, empowerment, and valuable content. Engagement really means go to where people are having a conversation, like swallow your pride and don't make it about you, but make it about them. Help them, be supportive, right? Give them, if they ask for help them right there. Don't expect anything of them. Don't plug your product, just help them. Build a human relationship. And they will find what you have to offer if you're interesting enough, right? If you want people to be interested in you, you have to be interesting. So be that in front of them. And then empowerment is the thing that I really enjoy, because like helping other people makes me feel good because I see them improve. So retweeting people's stuff without asking for things, inviting people into a conversation that could help these people. That is empowerment at scale, right? You could do this in front of any size audience. If you have 10 people in an audience or thousands, doesn't matter. Anything that you amplify, any voice, any message that you amplify, you never know who's out there who might help these people, who might read this, who might see this. So if you don't do it, you're kind of precluding the potential of the situation. So that is what I see as empowerment, something that I love doing. I think I retweet around 50%. No, I think it's 50% of what I do is replying, and of the remaining 50%, 80% is retweeting. Original tweets really is just like 10% of what I do, because I care more, I guess, about vibing with the community than having people think how great I am. I don't really need this, right? I don't want to become a guru. That's one of my fears, is that people consider me one of these people. I'm a dude in his basement telling people his experience. That is who I am. And I don't want to glorify anything about this. It's fun, but there are limits. So that's what I do. And then there's content, right? That's the other thing. That is just building a repertoire of really helpful content that people can find if they look for it. You don't have to be flashy, doesn't have to be viral, it just have to be there. You have to be consistent, show up every day, provide meaningful things for people, and over time, your long tail of content will lead people to you. That's what Seth Godin says, and I trust that guy because, he has a lot of interesting ideas that are very much true. And so is the whole long tail situation. So that's it, really. I engage more than I tweet. I mean, there's still tweets, but they're replies. They're amplifying an ongoing conversation. I help people get more views, and I help them every day.
That's good advice. I'm trying to grow my following, and just like you, I've been on Twitter for over 10 years. Not much of engagement, but this year, once I started engaging with people, it became a lot more fun. I actually developed a lot of new friendships just by doing that, and it's been fantastic. So before I let you go, a couple of funny questions, quirky questions, so that way people get to know your personality a little bit, Arvid. First question for you, okay? What is the most death-defying act that you've ever done before? the most death-defying act? Did you go?
In that regard, I think. Oh no, we already talked about the safari earlier, right? So, going out there in a Jeep, sitting just a couple meters away from what I can only describe as a ferocious cat. There was a couple leopards there. Was it leopards? What are these things called? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, leopards. And one of them really didn't like our Jeep. And I was just sitting there, the guy in front of me on the Jeep, and we're in safari, like it's middle of the day. The cat just had been trying to hunt, but had no success. And the guy in front of me with his cameras just click, 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 annoying this cat. And I could see this, I don't know, must have been 100 pounds worth of jaguar looking at us and realizing that we're food. It's a jaguar. Was it? Honestly, I don't know. Kitty. And the moment I saw this hunger in the eye of this cat was probably the scariest I've ever been in my life. And thankfully our guy in the car realized this, started the engine and kind of scared the cat away. But we were seconds away from being mauled by a very hungry, very pissed off cat. Yeah. So there you go.
Okay. Did you guys have at least a weapon with you in the Jeep, or no, just a camera?
Our guide had a rifle, but what are you going to do? Shoot into the crowd of people that is currently being mauled by a cat? Usually you start driving and then the thing jumps off. They had that before, and it usually doesn't kill you. It just scratches you up a little bit. It was a leopard, just recall now. But yeah, that was something. Okay.
Second question for you. Here we go. Okay, finish this or fill in the blank. Blank is a favorite TV show that I can watch again and again.
That would be Star Trek Voyager. I'm a huge Trekkie. I've watched Voyager and Next Generation and Deep Space Nine and all of them many, many times. But there's something about Voyager that keeps me coming back. Probably because I grew up around that time that was in TV in Germany. But Star Trek Voyager, highly recommended. It's a wonderful sci-fi show. And I could watch it again and again.
Fantastic. Arvid, thank you so much for being on Innovators Can Laugh. This was a pleasure. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. That was a lot of fun. So thank you for doing this. It's a fun show.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate it if you could give us a review and star rating. Also, don't forget to sign up for the ICO newsletter at innovatorscanlaugh.com, where you can get the bio and details of each guest. Thanks.